Hello. Welcome to the Nerdcade Cymru for yet another look at a classic toy. This time it's the 1982 Castle Grayskull that I've owned this form anyway for about 3 years. Bought off the very lovely Don Blanco for a roll call for a very tidy price indeed. And yes, I will mention that every time I end up looking at this toy because blimey, yeah, it was a steal. Quite frankly, not going to tell you how much because that would be vulgar, but yeah, steal. So yeah, I thought we'd have a look at this. Have done previously, it was about 3 years ago on a different camera that I wasn't happy with. So I thought I'd do another review of it, this time with a much better camera. So 1982, Mattel, they're just releasing their He-Man and the Masters of the Universe range and decide we're going to have a playset. Originally called The Dwell of Souls, and there is artwork for it available online and in the Art of He-Man book. And I will see if I can drop a picture in when I do a quick transition here in a moment. But yeah, originally known as The Dwell of Souls, was going to be quite different, and ended up being something quite different. Basically, He-Man's base of operations in the cartoon, in the comic books. That you saw in the 80s and in the Ladybird books especially, it was actually his home. It's somewhere he lived. Him and Teela would live there when they weren't living in various other places in like the sort of Eternal City and things like that. Teela would sleep in this little room here apparently in one of the Ladybird books. Very odd, very strange. Even had a standing army. There's a story, and I forget what it's called. I'm very sorry, but I think it's Attack on Castle Grayskull or something like that. Skeletor actually covers Castle Grayskull with a massive force field, digs a hole underneath it, then gets Merman to send all manner of nasties and horrible things under and into the area between the force field and the castle to make the water in between the two fill up, and everybody drowns, dies. And Skeletor can then take over as and when he pleases. Very strange story. And yes, Castle Grayskull has a standing army as well at that point. Again, very odd concept. Not something you would see outside of Ladybird. And probably for the best. I kind of like the Filmation version of Event, where it's just this castle that people go to and that you're not supposed to take much notice of. Also, very different location-wise in between the cartoon and the other media that they had, the book media. In the cartoon, it was on top of basically a stone mesa with lots of other mesas around it and a massive chasm. Fall over the chasm, you fall down, keep falling. In the Ladybird books, it's literally just in the middle of a forest. It's not built like a castle normally would be. It doesn't have a moat around it or anything like that. It's literally in the middle of a forest with the evergreen forest all around it. Very odd, very strange. The actual background for Castle Grayskull isn't really explored that much in the cartoons. It is in the other media. In the other media, it used to be the Hall of the Elders, the Hall of Wisdom. But the Elders foresaw a day when Skeletor would come and stalk the planet, wanting the power of the universe. So they decided to coalesce their collective consciousness into one orb of wisdom that was kept in the basement, basically, the catacombs, if you will, of the Hall of Wisdom. They then transformed the Hall of Wisdom into the mighty Castle Grayskull, so that it is the thing that you see before you today. Then He-Man is obviously recruited centuries later, thousands of years later, to protect that with the sorceress from the evil Skeletor. Now, in the Mike Young productions, they went a bit further than that and said it was just a castle owned by King Grayskull himself, which is why it's called Castle Grayskull, and he coalesced all his power into the Sword of Power, thereby creating He-Man for when anybody takes the sword and says, "By the power of Grayskull," which ends up being old He-Man here. But yes, it's sort of three different stories on how Castle Grayskull came about. The Filmation cartoon didn't really go into it too much. It just said, "No, this is Castle Grayskull, this is it. This is how it's always been, deal with it." Yeah, so there you go. But like I say, it ends up being He-Man's and Battle Cat's base of operations with the sorceress in there as well. It is so nice to have the toy. It's such a nice toy to have. in your collection as an adult toy collector, as is having He-Man and Battle Cat there as well. It just takes you right back to being a 6-year-old. It's great. I don't have to adult today because I'm off work, blah blah. So anyway, yeah, it is He-Man's base of operations. He-Man, of course. There, I'll do a review on him another time. But with his sword and his shield, I'm going to take his battle axe and shield, and take his sword, because there is one thing you have to do as a He-Man fan, as much as you can. You got to make this pose by the power of Grayskull and all that. And yes, I'm about 4 years old, clearly, but yes, you've got to do that as a He-Man fan. Now we'll have a look at the actual castle itself, the outside, and then we'll have a look at the inside after that. And I shall, because I'm again a 4-year-old, be using He-Man's Sword of Power to point things out as we go. So you've got the drawbridge, which will open in a minute, but it's really well detailed. It's hard plastic, hard green plastic, and it's got a lovely little symbol on there. Let's see if we can actually zoom in on that for you. If not, we'll go through it anyway. There we are. So there we go. If we actually zoom in on that, like so. Zoom out just a bit. There we go. So we've got the symbol there. It's got the skull and the helmet there, and the crossed swords as well, and the wings. Very, very nice. You can also see the detail on the wood. It's got the wood grain. And if you actually go down a bit, then you'll be able to see a few other things. You can see the iron holders on there. I don't know if there's a technical term for those, but the iron holders with the little rivets in there. You've got that, which we'll see in a minute. And like I say, you can see all the wood grain, everything nice there. It's quite cool. I think so anyway. So we'll just come out a bit on that. So you can see the drawbridge. We'll come back to that in a second, but that's the drawbridge. You can also see from this the teeth all around the castle door opening there, which is really cool, really nicely done. And then if you go up a bit more, you've got the full skull face there with the massive eye hole sockets and the nose sockets there, the cheekbones. Very nice use of colour in this thing as well, because you've got about 2 or 3 levels of colour. You've got the blacks there, you've got the greens, very light, sort of almost a neon green, and then sort of the greyish green colour there as well. And it's mottled, it's sort of not in the same place, it's not uniform, it's sort of painted. So you could sort of almost imagine that being moss growing on the castle walls, and the black is sort of like just age and fire, you know, having licked the walls of the castle, ash, soot and all that kind of crap just accumulating on the castle walls. It's really cool, really nice. You've also got up top there as well. Let's go up here. So you also have the flag, which I'll show you more of in a second, and you got the old gunnery installation there as well. Classic stuff. Like I say, you've also got an open window, which is nice, and you can also see when you turn it around how basically it's held together. So it's held together by these hinges here and here, and they're quite intact. On a lot of examples of this, you will find that they're knackered, that they're gone basically. On my Snake Mountain that I will review probably next after this, they are gone. They're broken. They're rubbish. They don't work anymore. But these, absolutely perfect and intact, and I'm really happy about that. Then you see the other side. It isn't actually the back of the castle, nor was it meant to be the back of the castle. This is actually the side of the castle, which we'll get into in a little bit. But you've got this little roof here, this little keep stroke ante-room of the castle. Another little tower there. You've got another little window that opens up, and then another keep sort of structure. You've got a nice little ring there where you can feasibly hang things off, maybe abseil down the castle, that kind of thing. And of course, carrying handle, which is pretty cool. But that's the outside of the castle. One last thing we need to look at for the outside, and that is the drawbridge, for which we need to zoom in again a little bit. There we go. A bit more maybe. Whoops. So we got the drawbridge then. And on the drawbridge, you have this little hole here. Now what's this for, I hear you wonder? Well, obviously you've got the power sword. And you've got one side which is He-Man's, one side which is supposed to be Skeletor's, the purple side. What the conceit was, and it wasn't ever sort of used for very long, this conceit, but the conceit was you would have He-Man's sword, Skeletor's power sword. They were supposed to come together into one mighty sword of power, and then that was supposed to open the door. So what we will do, we haven't got Skeletor's sword on me at the moment, but what I am going to do is stick that in the hole, and then what you were supposed to do is be able to unlock the castle door, and ooh, it comes apart. And then you were supposed to see what lies within. So little look at the drawbridge there. If I actually come into that, and then you can actually see it better. It's really cool. Is this really cool? You've got the tongue with a little crease down the middle, like tongues do have, and then you've got a couple of molars there and some craggy teeth at the front. It's really cool. I really like the fact that they do that. And just the amount of effort that was put into this thing. It's just super cool. But that's the outside of the castle. What we will do now is retire for a second and have a little look at the inside of the castle. And we'll do that now. So as we can see, Castle Grayskull opens out into quite a nice little playset. You've got two halves, one half here and one half here, with two very different sort of scenarios. Before anybody says, yes, I know it's simple. I know it's not the most intricate playset in the world. It's from 1982. This is from 34 years ago. So it's older than a lot of you that are going to be watching this. So have some fucking respect, basically, is what I'm saying. No, seriously though, it's old. It's massively old, and you know, it's the best that it was at the time. There was nothing like this around at all in 1982. Not to any great extent, and not to anything that would have been as exciting as this at that time. So we'll take off the first half. We've got an elevator with a little golem on there, with a little gargoyle, which we'll have a look at in more detail in a second. And you've got this thing, which I will take off and show you. He said instead of actually putting a plastic computer in there, what they did was very clever, and they put a cardboard insert. Basically, it's a very nice cardboard insert, and it's nice that it's intact, because most of them ain't. Yeah, it is intact, and it is looking very nice, and that goes just above here on a little post, and basically sits there. And look, computer, you had to use your Imagine more when you were a kid. You've got a nice little area down there and another insert there. It's a weapons pack insert, which is very strange because you do have a weapons pack there, which I'll show you in a second as well. So you've got this little plastic insert which sort of lives here or anywhere else you want to. Like I say, you then got the elevator. We'll have a look at that in a more detail in a second. You've also got this weird thing, which is a spacesuit. Very odd thing indeed. Spacesuit and whatever that is, it's hooked up to like a life support machine. Now some people have said that this is Marlena Glenn's spacesuit that she left when she crash landed on Eternia when she was an astronaut from Earth. Nothing's ever said about it really. It's just a sci-fi insert that they put in. They thought it looked nice, and you know what, they were right. It's pretty iconic. And you know, I think it sort of fits in well with the sci-fi sorcery theme that He-Man always had anyway. It was never one or the other, it was a bit of both. You've then got something here, which we'll look at in a bit more detail in a second. And if we take He-Man off, we've also got a throne which Zodak sits in sometimes. In fact, his flying throne that he had, very much modelled on that. And the sorceress could sit there as well if you had the sorceress figure, and I don't, so tough. But I like to put He-Man there as well. And then you've got another little area down here, which again I'll show in a bit more detail. And this ladder, you had a ladder that usually went there, could go anywhere, could go there. I always like to put it there, so basically when a bad guy walks in through the front door, he could then go up there and try and take over the castle. You've also got this thing, which is, I want to say ballista. It's not a ballista. It's something. But basically, it's a training implement. What you're supposed to do, He-Man would hit that, and then hit that, and then this bit goes around. You're supposed to block that with your shield. I always thought that looked like a big fist, but I don't know what it's supposed to be. Where are we? There we are. But this has got the face of a boar, basically, or a nasty monster that you're supposed to hit. And then that turns around. Very, very nice. And then this bloody thing. This is the weapons rack. And already it falls off. This is the problem I always had with this thing. It's rubbish, basically, is the weapons rack. It's not fit for purpose because nothing on it stays on it for more than a second. Here we go. If I lean it back slightly, it should stay on. Now, it came with all this stuff on it, which is amazing, because certain parts of this are, well, rare. Like this little gun here. It's rare because people fucking lose it, basically. And other parts like the little axe that I've got here as well. This bit, again, very, very rare apparently, because people do lose it. And all these held bars here, and this mace, and the gun, and the shield. And you've got to be super careful because it'll all fall off. Anyway, there we are. Look, it happened again. It's rubbish. So let me just put that there. I'm not going to bother with that anymore because I hate the weapons rack. Hate the weapons rack. You can hear it coming apart then. Just never stays together. I'm happy to have it, don't get me wrong, but it's a twat is what it is. Anywho, so picking up, and we're gonna fly. Whoa. So what we're going to do now is have a bit of a closer look at Castle Grayskull, and I've taken the camera off its stand, so if it does seem a bit wibbly wobbly, sorry about that, but yeah, it's got to be handheld for this bit, I'm afraid. So let's have a look first at the gargoyle we've got here. So it's very, very nice, very nicely detailed little thing. I mean, considering its only function is really a counterweight for the elevator, it's really nice. And like I say, we've got the computer section there. And again, you can see all the sculpted detail inside of the castle, which is very, very nice. And this thing here, literally just a plain bit of brown plastic so that the characters can stand on it. And if we go underneath, we can see the elevator. Again, really nice sculpted plastic, really nice work that's been done on these things. They really did care about these things, did Mattel. Now, the only problem is that the lift, bless it, probably didn't work very well at the time, but it certainly doesn't work very well now. You pull it and it comes to about halfway and then says, nope, not doing anymore. So what you've got to do is push underneath, and it does get stuck, bless it, and that's literally all it is. If you pull, there we go. If you pull, you eventually do get some purchase, and you can then lift it all the way up. But it is a major flaw in the design of this thing, that it just doesn't want to work. And it's this section in particular on the left hand side there, it just doesn't want to. When it does, it's brilliant. And when it first was a thing, when it first was a toy, it would have worked perfectly, but age and just the fact that it just gets stiff over the years means that it just doesn't work very well anymore, and that's a shame. Because it would be lovely for it to work properly, but it just doesn't want to. See how stiff it is? Ow. And you do injure yourself on it sometimes. And this thing comes out, and it's something that really, it's a play feature that really you don't want to be messing around with anymore, because the last thing that you want to do is break this thing. And you know, you will if you keep messing about with it too much. So maybe, you know, the elevator is maybe something that if you do get one of these, just don't mess about with it too much if it isn't working. The last thing you want to do is shatter the plastic, and it is possible that you would do that, which is a shame. But there you go, that's old toys for you. Now on this side, again, you can see the back of the castle. You can see the good side of the flag. You got a bad side and then a good side, a bad side, then a good side. Yeah, you've got the rear of the gunnery installation, which is very, very cool. Again, some really nice sculpted detail on this thing. I like it anyway. And you can see exactly where the space suit is supposed to go, which is there. Now, like I say, you do have this thing here, this carpet with an eye on it, which we'll have a look at in a minute. And then He-Man sat in the throne. Better look at the throne for you. See, the stick is a bit wonky these days, it's a bit knackered, but then again, it's old, so, you know, nothing much you can do with it. And then the bottom here, you've got the jaw bridge. You can see Battle Cat's arse there, which is very, very nice. And then you've got this little thing, which is original artwork that was done for Castle Grayskull. It's a sticker with the dungeon with all kinds of horrible nasties, from the Chewbacca type claws there to the tentacles to the eyes looking very much like the trapdoor of 1980s television, and even a skeleton hand there as well. So one play feature of this is that you have the ladder there, and then you have someone, either a good or a bad guy, sitting in your throne. You then have a bad guy like Skeletor who goes, "Nyah, I have entered Castle Grayskull and now shall kick the ass of that boob He-Man so I can take over the universe." And then he'd climb up the ladder like so. And then he'd conveniently stand there. If I can get him to stand. Again, the problem with old toys is their legs don't work as well as they should. But there you go, classic pose there of Skeletor and He-Man. He-Man on his throne and Skeletor saying, "Turn to face me, He-Man, or I shall kick your ass like a boob." He's obsessed with asses and boobs, basically, as Skeletor. And He-Man would then go, "Ha ha ha, Skeletor, let me turn around and face you, motherfucker." And then nothing had happened, because again, it's a very old toy. But what has happened, and you'll be able to see it underneath, is that there's a little catch there, which is now gone. Oops, if I can get my thumb out of the way. Catch there, which is now gone. So technically, that should fall open. So it's a trap door, and not a trap jaw. You see, that would be something quite different. So He-Man has moved his throne, so technically what should happen is this. Ow! And now Skeletor, you can see, has fallen, or should have fallen, in the dungeon there. And that was the idea. Sadly, because it's an old toy and it's quite frankly warped over time, doesn't quite work. You can actually hear it catching on the inside because the plastic's warped. Oh, old toys, you're disappointing and you let us down. But you're not really disappointing. But that's the way it's supposed to work. So you have villain, fall down into dungeon, get caught in dungeon. Now, the Mike Young Productions Castle Grayskull 2000X, that did update that slightly, and we shall see that another time exactly what it does. But not many play features in Castle Grayskull. And, you know, like I said, it's an old toy. There's no reason there should be. There were plenty play features in there for us as kids, and so much fun was had by myself as a kid with this thing. Having lots of different adventures with He-Man and Skeletor and the crews. It was great. And it's a really nice toy to have again in my possession. It's so nostalgic. It's so brilliant to have a toy of this magnitude back. And like I say, yeah, all right, it might seem a bit simple if you're a younger viewer and you're thinking, well, it doesn't really do much, does it? When you were a kid, back in the 80s, this was massive. You didn't have play sets like this properly when you were a kid. So to have this in your possession, it was bloody awesome to have a Castle Grayskull with He-Man and Skeletor and all the rest of the gang in there as well. So if you can get your hands on one of these, I suggest you do, but probably only if you're of a certain age. If you're a younger person who really didn't own this as a kid, then really there's no reason for you to have this. What is essentially a doll's house, as my partner always says. I'll link to that video somewhere else. I'll put that video up another time. Next time, we're going to be looking at Skeletor's base. So Skeletor had a castle too, or a hideout, and that was obviously Snake Mountain. So next time, idiots, you'll be seeing my crib on MTV Cribs.